So lack of confidence. How do you help somebody become more confident?
Well, I always look at babies, having had one myself, and babies are born with so much confidence. If you push the pram down, people come and go, your baby's so cute. They don't go, don't look at me, I don't like attention. They love attention. If ever you've sat round a pool, you'll hear all these kids saying, Daddy, look at me, Mummy, look at me. So we come into the world loving attention. I mean, that's the first experience you get. Everyone looks at you, the doctor, the nurse, the midwife, parents, grandparents. So what I tend to do is reactivate that innate confidence that you were born with, and at the same time have a look at why you've lost your confidence. It's always there will be something very specific that causes people to lose their confidence, but they don't really lose it. I believe it becomes submerged under all kinds of negative beliefs, and when you remove them, the confidence can come back. So I give people back what they were born with, which is better, because then they don't go away and think, well, I've never had it. They go away and think, yeah, of course I had it, and I can have it back again.
Can anybody become more confident?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing with your mind is, and the mind is really simple, your mind does what it absolutely thinks you want it to do. So if you fear rejection, if you've been humiliated at school or by, as one of my clients was telling me, that she went to work on her Thursday, her boss shouted out across the floor, she's useless, she'll never be good at anything. And when you're humiliated like that, the number one job of your mind is to make sure you never experience that again. So your mind is always working to move you away from anything that causes you pain, and it has to find out what causes you pain to move you away from it. So people who've been rejected then spend their life avoiding rejection, avoiding humiliation, and they won't put themselves forwards. But when you take that away and show them that you can't be rejected, the only person who can truly reject you is you. Somebody can not give you a job and not like you, but they can't really reject you because they don't really know you. And so I teach people that there's no such thing as rejection. Nobody can diminish you. And once you believe in yourself, then it doesn't really matter what other people think. And people get very concerned that that's arrogance, but it's not. It's just a self-esteem that radiates out from you. So you can't really be diminished. You can have bad days, but we can all feel incredibly confident and incredibly self-assured. And the great thing is that people love that. You want to be with people who are self-assured. Like if you were going to see a doctor, you want him to say, I'm the best doctor in the world. You don't want him to go, oh, I'm not really that very good. I'm okay, but I'm not great. I mean, who's going to go and see a doctor like that?
Yeah.
When you're flying with a pilot, you want to say, I'm the best pilot BA has got, not, oh, I'm not very good. I hope I can get you through this turbulence. So people who are confident make us feel really, really at ease, and we like that. And also, confidence is really very sexy too. Men love confident women, so we should all be more confident.
Marisa, you're doing very well with your latest book about getting pregnant and succeeding, and I'm very interested. Tell us about that. How does it work?
Well, I was told I could never have children under any circumstances, which was incredibly depressing. But my only saving grace was I refused to even let those words in. And then, of course, I did get pregnant. And then I was told that my baby would die or she'd be born ill, and she was perfect. And then I realised then how important it is not to listen to that stuff. But it's the same thing. If your mind's number one job is to move you away from pain, and you go through life saying for the first 15 years of your fertility, oh, don't, use a condom, I don't want to have a baby, or for God's sake, be careful, I can't have a baby right now, or we can't afford a baby, the house isn't big enough, I'm not going to get promoted if I have a baby. If ever you have a pregnancy scare in your teens, go, please God, don't let me be pregnant by the end of my life, then of course your mind is looking for that. And when you use birth control, you say every month for 15, even 20 years, I don't want a baby. And then people wonder why they have what's called unexplained infertility, which means there's nothing wrong with you physically, but there's something unexplained that's causing you not to conceive. And that's the belief that you don't want a baby. Once your mind believes pregnancy is best avoided, it can switch off your fertility completely. And once you get the mind to believe, no, that was then, this is now, I want a baby, I'm ready for a baby, you can actually switch on fertility. So animals don't have infertility because they never get to delay or put off having a baby. Tribes don't have infertility. You couldn't go to Ghana and see 1 in every 4 women not having a baby, but in the West, 1 in every 3 to 4 couples can't conceive. 40% of that is male, but there's a lot of things you can do for male infertility too. So what I do is boost fertility mentally, physically. There's a lot of things involved. But the mental side is the most important. Even with IVF, when people go for IVF, they say, well, we have a 20% success rate. And what women hear is, you have an 80% failure rate, and I'm going to be one of those 80%. Statistically, of course I am. But actually with IVF, the 20% success rate is only at implantation stage, because if you collect eggs and fertilize eggs, that's a 100% success rate. So when my clients go for IVF, I give them a recording to listen to that communicates with the intelligence of the embryo and tells it to implant. And people forget that, the cells in your body are so smart, they actually know what to do. Every organ in your body will respond to your thinking. We know that because when you think of eating, you make digestive enzymes. When men think of sex, they get very physical reaction in their body because your body responds to the thoughts you think. That's why if you watch a film about pain or mutilation, you kind of recoil because you react to it. So because every thought you think has a physical reaction in the body, the more you think about ovulating the most amazing egg, having it fertilized, rehearsing with it moving down the fallopian tube and implanting, you're actually massively boosting your chances of getting pregnant. Naturally, but also with IVF too.
The results have been phenomenal from what I gather, with
Yeah,
loads of IVF
they really
clinics
have.
following and your work and what you're doing.
Yeah, lots of IVF clinics use my method, and a lot of them say, look, just keep my client consistent. A lot of my IVF clinics like their clients to listen to my CDs while they're going through the procedure. And in fact, recently one of my clients said that everyone in her embryologist ran out of the room and came back again with camera crew, and I've never seen an embryo this amazing quality. You can't even get this in a 25-year-old, and she was 45, and they were saying, what have you done? And she said, I've done Marisa's technique. They said it's actually impossible to have an egg of this quality, but it's not impossible because the body will respond to the thoughts you think all the time. That's why, when Roger Bannister broke that 4-minute mile, they said it was impossible. Within a year, 27 more people did it, because once one person does the impossible, everyone else does it too. And with fertility, you can actually achieve what's classed as impossible, because what doctors tell you is possible changes all the time. I mean, when Mandy Elwood had 8 embryos, they said it's impossible for anyone to carry 8 babies to full term. 2 years later, someone did just that, and since then, I think there's 8 different women all over the world who've had 8 babies successfully. So you can't always believe what medical people tell you.
Unbelievable.
I mean, they mean well, but they're wrong.
You discussed recently about, we're talking in general how society, how we're all aging, and how there'll be tens of millions of, over 60s around the world. I know you're doing some amazing work on that. Tell me a little bit about, the new project Forever Young. And
Yeah, well, Forever Young is a really interesting concept because aging is a belief that you turn into. So if you were born in Japan and saw your 85-year-old grandparents doing Tai Chi and doing all kinds of activities, you would age the way they age. If you see your 65-year-old grandparents in the West in an old people's home watching TV going on my knees, I can't remember anything, then you turn into that too. So aging as we know it doesn't exist because you have 3 ages. You have the age that your birth certificate says you are. Then you have your biological age, which means that if you're a 40-year-old runner, your heart will actually be 30, but your knees will be maybe 50. And if you run in the sun, your skin may be 60 because your organs age on their own timetable. So if you're active, you'll be younger. People who meditate are biologically 15 years younger than those who don't. Then you have a 3rd age, which is the age you feel. And the age you feel affects the age of your organs. So very happy people have younger organs than very depressed, anxious people. So now we know that what you feel links how you age. You can actually change your aging. You can live to 105. That you can add at least 30 years to your lifespan just by doing certain things, such as not sleeping with your laptop or your mobile phone charging right next to your bed at night. But the most effective way to slow down aging is to choose not to believe in it. Because there's a lots of examples of what I call the new old age. If for instance, professors who still lecture at 80 have the same neurons as professors of 30, because the brain is quite brutal. It's what's called use it or lose it. And if you keep using your neurons of your brain, they don't wither. And there's something called neurobics, which I love, which says just clean your toothbrush with the other hand, go up the stairs with the other leg, and you start to fire off different neurons in your brain. Because we want to look younger, but there's no point looking younger if you feel old. So what Forever Young is a package of how to look younger, but also feel younger and have a much younger, sharper mind, and even slow down the aging of your hair, maintaining an active sex life. There's a lot of things that you can do that will keep you young for a long, long time.
I was fascinated on this TV program, which you also saw yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it. Explain what the process was. Was it they did that? Was it in the 60s and they just did it recently?
Dr. Ellen Langer, who I met many, many years ago, because I wrote Forever Young 16 years ago, but I've just updated it. Dr. Ellen Langer took a group of men in the 70s, men and women, to a retreat, and in the retreat they all pretended it was 1955 rather than 1975. It was just a 10-day retreat, and before they went they tested their grip, they tested the length of their finger, they tested their eyesight, their hearing, their balance, and then in this closed retreat everything looked as if it was 1955. The films were piped in from the 50s, the magazines from the 50s, the furniture was from the 50s, and they wore badges themselves, 20 years younger. And after 10 days, they did all the tests again, and they had all reversed their age by 15 years, even their grip, their balance, their sight, their vision. It was really the most fascinating experiment. People say, well, it's because they relaxed. So they took another group to the same retreat, but they just relaxed, and they didn't pretend it was 20 years earlier, and they didn't reverse their aging at all. And the BBC did a copy of this only 2 years ago, and Lionel Bart was in it, and Elizabeth Smith was in it, and some really interesting English people were in it. And they pretended the retreat was 30 years younger, so it went from 2000, I think it was done in 2007, and they pretended it was 1987. And they said it was remarkable. Some of them went in, Liz Smith particularly went in on sticks, and within a few days she was walking around and dancing in the garden. Sylvia Sims was in there, and halfway through they invited some carers in to see if they'd like some help, and they all said it made them feel incredibly old, and they didn't like that at all. They sent the carers back. But they had the same statistics. They had reversed their age by 15 years. They were walking without sticks, running, dancing. And what one of them said, he said, I forgot I was old. He said, when I was in there, I really believed I was 30 years younger. And it was incredible. And then the BBC did some even more interesting test where they took some people and put them in a simulated flight simulator so that they would believe that they were pilots. And they said incredibly their vision changed almost immediately. And they said physically their vision couldn't actually change, but their brain, knowing that fighter pilots have to have perfect vision, started to work so much harder to give them perfect vision. So all of those tests, and there are many others, show you that you are what you believe. The age on your birth certificate is irrelevant. And that's why you'll see people like Tishan, who is painting into his 80s, and composers who are still composing, and Lucian Freud, and many people like that. They don't actually grow old the way we think they should grow old. They're very active, their minds are sharp. And if you choose not to grow old, I mean, I love that expression, says when hope dies, old age runs to meet you. But if you choose not to grow old, you can slow down aging dramatically. There's a lot that you can do, and my book takes you through step by step everything that you can do. It's really easy to slow down physical and mental aging forever.
What do you think are your best assets, Marisa? What do you think your best assets are?
My best assets is that I don't do no. I refuse to take no for an answer. So if I'm told no, when I was told you can't have a baby or you'll never be able to do that, I don't let that in, which I find very useful. I do let in criticism, but only if it's useful. And so I'd say that's probably my best attitude. I just won't take no for an answer. And I was studying once celebrities, because I work with a lot of them, And I mean, I don't put myself in that category, but what I found out was that celebrities don't take no for an answer. They're very interesting. They simply refuse to do no. And if you say to them, okay, we're having a party, everyone's coming wearing white, they'll turn up in green, because they want to be a little bit different. But they don't see it as a handicap, they see it as an asset. And it's a great thing to not take no for an answer. You know, it's the same thing, you know, when you look at what happened in 9/11, those people who were told to stay in the building, and the ones that said, I'm not staying, I'm out of here, actually survived. So, and it's the same thing on an aeroplane. The people who won't take no for an answer tend to survive because they don't follow, they lead. And that's a good thing to do. Not all the time, of course, but most of the time.
And looking at society nowadays and you know, how the world is, what do you think are the best attributes for, you know, the young new generation coming up?
It doesn't matter how talented you are, if you don't have self-belief, you're not going to get anywhere. If you have extraordinary self-belief, very little talent, you can get everywhere. But if you have both, if you have talent and belief, it will actually make you unstoppable. Now, I work with a lot of football teams and a lot of football players, and a lot of those footballers come out of school at 14. They know they're going to be famous players. They don't really pursue an education. A lot of them have an extraordinary negative self-belief because they're only good at sport, which is a great shame. And one of my players at the moment has now become a fantastic commentator, but I do a lot of work with him to put in him that belief, because he wasn't great at spelling and he wasn't great at school because he knew he was going to be a footballer. So belief without talent will take you far further than talent without belief. But if you have both, you can go far. But everyone can learn self-belief. Everyone's good at something. You know, you're not meant to be good at everything. It's no good being a jack of all trades and a master of none. So be really good at what you're good at, and don't worry about what you're not good at, because we're not all supposed to be good at the same thing. Find your talent, you know. Find out what you love to do. What you're meant to do lies directly behind and is absolutely linked to what you love to do. When I was a kid, actually, I loved writing little stories and illustrating them. And it's funny that now I am a very successful writer, because I was always writing when I was a kid, but I never considered that as a career. But it kind of found me later. My daughter was always drawing and always, in fact, she went to college to be a criminologist and then gave that up and became an artist because it's what she was meant to do. So find out what you love and be brilliant at it and believe in yourself.
But what are your thoughts regarding school and education and how, you know, the youth is coming out of schools and universities?
Yeah, I think schools should put half their curriculum should be self-belief. We know that in countries like America, where they really teach children to believe in themselves, it doesn't work across all, but it works. We know that in schools like Montessori, where they teach self-belief, it works. And, you know, our schools spend so much time on things like handwriting and languages, and they're very useful. But nothing is as useful as self-belief. And we also know that you only learn for 3 hours a day. You can have an 8-hour day, but you're going to learn in 3 hours, that's it. So you should put a lot more time into making children believe in themselves. And also goals. The very few schools that teach goal achieving find that children really like it. And the statistics go way, way up. So I would love every school curriculum to teach goal setting, goal achieving, and self-belief and self-confidence, because self-esteem means how much you like yourself. But when you like yourself, you also like other people too. You can't like yourself and not like other people. So a lot of violence and aggression would end if we could just learn how to like ourselves and other people rather than feel dissatisfied with ourselves, which means, of course, you're dissatisfied with someone else. Because if you don't like yourself and you feel dissatisfied, you want everyone around you to be like that too, and then you feel a bit better because you're in the same company. If you don't feel very good and everyone around you is happy, then what people do is they tend to try and diminish everyone else or elevate themselves. But you can't elevate yourself if you don't like yourself. So a lot of the issues we have in schools, the violence, the truanting, the not achieving, could be cut in half if you just taught children to really like themselves and to have self-esteem.